intersection, turn on. Gearz with Sasha Martinengo.
Biggest problem. Steve Miller from MotorSport South Africa coming to join us, which would be really good. It'd be the first time I'll be chatting to Steve Miller. He's the new chairman of MotorSport South Africa. We'll find out exactly how he got to it, etc., because there were a couple of resignations. And I think I'll try and be rather tame on him for the first interview, because I think things could get quite heated when as the season progresses in terms of motorsport. It is Gearz with Sasha Martinengo, Balls Visual Radio. And you know what? I am in awe. I'm overwhelmed that Steve Miller's already here from MotorSport South Africa. I already see a very clean brush going through an organization where there is some controversy, and we're going to try and tackle some of those things during the course of today, and I think also in the future as well. Okay, this is a great honor and a great privilege to have a man, this is the first time I've met him, recently appointed as the chairman of MSA?
That's the chairman, yeah, the non-executive chairman.
Non-executive chairman of MotorSport South Africa. And for those of you who follow motorsport, and I'm sure most who are listening definitely do, you would have seen that there was the resignation of the chairman and then the resignation of the MD over the past couple of weeks. So quite a lot of turmoil, Steve, that has been happening in motorsport South Africa. I won't say in the very serious past, but in recent months.
Yeah, I think there's no doubt that it's evident that there's been changes of faces, partly a change in philosophy, I guess. A lot of the faces are still the same, for good or bad. So I'm just the unlucky guy who got the job.
Now, for those who may be not au fait with a little bit of your past, or your history, or your motorsport background, can you just fill us in a little?
Well, my racing background is short and sweet. I'm just a basic club scrubber.
Okay.
I race historic cars. I've got a collection of old Porsches, which my son's now taken the keys away from me.
You see the glint in Nicole's eye there? How old are your sons?
Yeah, they'd love to, but sorry. I've got my real passion is single seaters. So we run some Formula 4s, some old stuff, and I think I once won the, what was it then, Gauteng Formula Ford series. So that's about as good as I got.
Okay. How did the appointment come about? You run very successful businesses, besides now being the non-executive chairman of MotorSport South Africa. So how did they pick you and find you? And how and why have you decided to take on, I think, an extremely challenging position?
I think when our chairman resigned, I got to go to the loo, and when I came back I was chairman. It was sort of that sort of situation. We decided that in the best interest of continuity we'd choose somebody from the board that existed, so it's an interim position in a sense, and if anybody else wants the job, believe me, I'm very happy to move aside. It's challenging, but challenging is positive and negative. People say things are challenging and they ordinarily mean it's cuck. Well, actually it's not. It's a great organization. There's some really good people. And yeah, it's got its problems and it needs to be sorted out. And so I'm looking forward to it. I'm enjoying it. I think I'm up to the challenge. And I see a lot of positives about motorsport per se and MotorSport South Africa as an organization. Okay, well, that's extremely positive to hear, because as you well know, and I also know from my love of motorsport over the years, is that motorsport anywhere in the world is controlled by a couple of things: money, fuel, and ego. I think the last two are the same thing, basically. Yeah. Fueled by ego. Fueled by ego. Yeah. So there's so many points that I want to eventually not tackle and try and solve together with you. Sure. And I'm pledging now that Gearz here on Balls is the platform for MotorSport South Africa. Thank you. I have a tremendous dedication every Wednesday and Thursday, which will be focused completely
on local motor racing, our local motor racing stars. They're going to be in studio. We are now going to create profile
That's awesome.
of these incredibly talented individuals that we have in South Africa.
They really are. I mean, people don't realize how world class our top drivers are. And in fact, even people talk disparagingly about club and regional motorsport, where most people participate to have fun. And I think really we may have lost a bit of focus. We need to get that fun and element back. But the standard of driving in this country is high. People come out, you'll know they come out quite frequently to do international historic racing. And I think they're very surprised by the proficiency of the drivers, the quality of the organization, and the fun that they have, the hospitality. But at the top end, they're really, really good guys, all world class. And you mentioned the money word earlier. If we had more money, and possibly if we had a better strategy, I suppose, so we've got to look at that too. Some of those kids should end up on a world stage.
I'm glad you brought up the word strategy. There's quite a few questions that are coming through on Twitter here, and a lot of people saying very much the same things. Now, I've been around in the going to circuits and watching because I have such a love and enthusiasm for local motorsport, and I keep on hearing, and this is where it really irks me. I keep on hearing saying, "Well, the problem is this. The problem is this isn't working, and that's not working." And what really irks me the most, Steve, is everyone's moaning, but no one's trying to solve a problem or find a solution. So I'm going to put you a little bit on the spot. Now, yesterday when I spoke to ST and asked if you would be available, and I really appreciate your time because I know that you've just flown up and you've got other meetings to go to. And I said to her, listen, I want to just, on the first interview, I'd like to just focus a little bit on circuit racing.
Sure.
So I'm looking at circuit racing. We've got the Westbank Super Series that currently takes place. Over the years, Steve, we've seen numbers dwindle in terms of competitors. Yes, and that can be a massive financial burden. My biggest concern is we're not getting spectators to the circuits to come and actually watch these incredibly talented drivers.
Yep.
Is there a plan in strategy? Do you have somebody who's heading up circuit racing? Or are you going to take control of this and sit there and say, we need to find a solution?
We do need to find solutions, and there's no doubt that some of our categories in particular and some of our series have problems that need to be resolved. But if I can just give you a broader context, I think everybody focuses on Westbank Super Series because it's the most visible, because it's the top end, it's the pinnacle, it's where most of the money gets spent and it's most visible. But don't forget about the bottom, where these guys start and where they come from.
Sure.
Club racing in this country is extraordinarily strong. The numbers have not dropped. Like, in fact, a meeting was held at Midvaal this last weekend. Over 3,500 spectators came through. Now, I don't know how many club events in this country are pulling 3,500 spectators. I don't know if rugby pulls 3,500 spectators to a club game. Okay, so it's not all doom and gloom. That having been said, there needs to be a clear strategy between the three links in circuit racing. It needs to be how you get into club racing and how you have fun, how you progress to regional racing and take it more seriously, and then probably only the very few get to do national events, national racing on either Westbank Super Series or Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Those two have to have very separate identities, and they have to have good strategies and good stable rules. Now, to you focused on Westbank Super Series, so if I may, I'm going to just spend a little bit of time on them.
Yeah.
I think we do have a problem. I think the problems have been identified, and let me just quickly say that this is not a one-man band. We have a very able Circuit Commission chairman, Carl Pienaar. He's got a great team of people around him, and they're working really hard on a strategy, the key tenets of which are, I think, in line with a new strategy, or a revised strategy for MSA. And if I can sum up MSA's strategy, and I will get back to Westbank, but if I can sum up MSA's strategy going forward, it's 3 words: simple, fair, and safe. Okay.
Like that.
I'm committed absolutely to safety. I want, I've got 2 children who race. I want the best medical care for them, and I want the same medical care for everybody else who races. So personal accident insurance, I know it's a bugbear, guys, and I know it's expensive, but please, I really want people to be as safe as they can. We're working really hard to get it reduced in the future, but it is a fact of life. It's going to stay with us. Okay. So, and I'm willing to take the cannon that comes later on that and answer any questions about personal accident insurance. But it's crucial to safety. Second is fairness. We have to have rules people understand, and they need to be simpler as well. Okay. We're working on some initiatives that we think are going to bear fruit next year, where people who come for fun racing don't have to wade through a white book. They can get a really simple set of rules, go racing cheaply, and have a bundle of fun. Have a beer with their mates afterwards, Whether they want to race for championships or not, fair enough. At the top end, though, it's going to be rigorous. You've got to have strict rules. You've got to have fairness in terms of how the people compete. And we also have to have really good officials. Okay, so simple, fair, safe. Those are the three mantras. And Coral's working particularly on simple and fair, I think. There are big moves afoot to make production cars, for instance, much less expensive into the future.
Yeah.
We want much bigger fields. Dick Sorensen's doing a great job there, and they're moving forward quite swiftly. In fact, I'm off to a board meeting at 2 o'clock to go and discuss exactly these things. You already have seen that there's been an amalgamation of single-seater categories, and contrary to all the doom merchants, the thing's grown. Volkswagen, as far as I know, has no more chassis to sell to people or to lend out to people, and Formula Ford chassis are being sold. So that is growing. And in fact, even if you go back to production car numbers, they are on average slightly better than last year. So
yeah.
We've had some patchy races, make no mistake. We have had some issues around some of the other events, but Polos is screaming this year. I mean, fields of 30 plus, great racing. So I'm not trying to sell you completely a rosy picture. There are issues that we need to work on them. And Westbank Super Series is the jewel in the crown, and we need to focus on it. But believe me, the guys out there aren't the only ones seeing the cracks. We'd be seeing them, and we're trying to work on it.
Okay, that's very good. It's good to hear your opinion. There are a couple of points I want to come up with. Safety point of view, circuits. There are a lot of our circuits that are in not very good condition. The tracks may be okay. The facilities are not up to scratch.
Yep.
Is there investment? Who is running these circuits? Are they privately owned?
Yep.
Why is there no investment going into the refurbishment of these kind of circuits? That's the first question I want to pose. Also, and I'm kudos to Westbank for being a sponsor of local motor racing for many, many, many years. I do not see them marketing aggressively enough for us to get the kind of crowds that we expect to go and see a national a kind of event. If a club event pulls 3,500 people when nobody really even knows about it, we've got a national event and they're not pulling those kind of
Well,
numbers.
the club event pulled those numbers because people did know about it.
Okay, so
interesting enough, that circuit has forged a relationship with their local municipality, and the local municipality sponsored radio spots. So the power of advertising, and plug for you, radio,
Yes.
is there. Westbank has their own sponsorship strategy, and yes, we're incredibly indebted to them for the relationship that we've enjoyed for so long.
Sure.
I can't tell them how to spend their money. They know how they want to spend it and against whom they want to spend it. We would always like to have more people at the track. That's partly a marketing job, and I guess the promoter and the guys who are organising Westbank Super Series need to take a hard look at it, and are. Part of it's also the content. So let's be fair. We've got to dish up a show.
Sure.
And that's the other area that we're trying to work on. So I think conjointly we're going to try and get to a better show and a better package for that show into the future. Nothing's solved overnight.
No, of course not.
To go back to your first question about the tracks, there's this misconception that MSA is a promoter.
Okay, I'm glad you bring that up.
MSA is the administrator of motorsport.
Okay.
So for most series of racing, the rules are generated by that series themselves. They are ratified by MSA for adherence to certain principles of safety and fairness. Okay, if it looks like it's going to provide decent racing, MSA signs off. MSA's job is to issue permitting, making sure that the races are safe and that they are legal.
Yes.
MSA does not promote motorsport, contrary to many misconceptions. We do not get involved in the promotion of events. Our promotion of motorsport is at the very broadest level, promoting motorsport in fora like Department of Sport and Recreation and SASCOC, etc. Okay, that's the limit of promotion. We are ideally an effective and efficient administrative body.
And you make sure the licenses are up to date, etc.
Exactly.
I think that is very important that we do get clarity on that, because I think a lot of finger pointing is thrown to MSA because these events are not really working. So,
well, MSA also likes to take an active role in how the events work against what was promised. So,
yeah. Well, I mean, it is important that there is a successful event because it shines better for everybody.
And there's feedback. There's feedback if things go wrong, and there's feedback if things go right to MSA to try and improve the show. There's also adherence to safety measures and so on. So MSA doesn't take a completely back seat in the running of these events, but it's about administration and fairness. The reason I bring this point up is that MSA has not 1 cent invested in any circuit. These circuits are privately owned.
Okay.
Why aren't people putting money into it? Because they're not getting enough money back. Quite frankly, racing in South Africa, and I know no one wants to hear this, but racing is dirt cheap, and it's getting more expensive. That I appreciate.
Sure.
But the guys are battling to make money on their circuits. So, the primary area of focus for us is on the track and the safety associated with the guys on the track and their interface with spectators and the public. So I'm glad you say that you think the tracks are still in good condition, because that's our primary focus. And that's where most of the guys are still spending their money, to make sure that the racing is good and safe and people have fun. But yeah, facilities are in some cases ropey. I'm glad to say that what you're seeing at most of the tracks, an attempt to try and pretty things up, improve. But quite frankly, I just don't think the money's there right now. And there's a kind of a chicken and egg, because I want to preempt something, but I'm sure people say, like, we're not going to go and race at X track because it's crappy. Okay, if you don't go and race there, the guy doesn't get any income. There's no chance he can improve the facility for you. So MSA has this balancing act of trying to provide racing at certain venues in an attempt to keep them afloat and provide income so that they can get better. And it's kind of work in progress. We do appreciate that there are better and worse circuits, and there are better or worse experiences. A lot of the time, a lot of the conflict arises not from the racing per se, but for things like toilets and amenities.
The amenities,
and
unfortunately,
so on.
are lacking.
Yeah, and MSA gets the flack for those things. We're not toilet cleaners, guys, but we do take an interest in those things from a health and safety point of view as well. But,
of course.
I mean, bear with us as we try and work together with circuit owners to try and improve. And I think part of it as well is trying to remove some of the strictures to making money in motorsport. It's imperative that people can make a good living out of motorsport. In fact, I really, really hope people can make millions, honestly, in motorsport. If we do that, we're doing a great job. And not MSA. MSA doesn't need to make money. It's a Section 21 break-even company. Okay.
Okay, cool.
So I think I've kind of rambled in answering your questions.
No. I think you've hit quite a lot of nerves there, and the great thing about it is there seems to be some kind of positivity and problem solving that will be coming up. Coming up shortly, Steve, because I don't want to keep you too long, because I know you've got to fly off to another meeting. I want to tackle 3 different things: sponsorship, international events, and also I want to ask a little bit about Kyalami. But we'll talk about that in about 4 or 5 minutes from now. It is Gearz with Sasha Martiningo on Balls Visual Radio. If you're just joining us, that's Garland Jeffries. Hail, hail, rock and roll. In studio guest this afternoon, and it's really, really a privilege to have him here. For the first time on Gearz, and I can guarantee it definitely won't be the last time. But he's the chairman of MotorSport South Africa, Steve Miller. We've had a very interesting chat about circuits, facilities, safety. We were just chatting off air there, Stephen. I just wanted to know who owns what in terms of racing, because you said to us that MotorSport South Africa is not involved in the serious promotion of events. That's up to the promoter as well as the sponsor. But let's say production cars.
Yep.
Is it owned by the series themselves? Is it owned by the manufacturers who are taking part? Who owns it and who controls it?
It's a strange legacy that Motorsport South Africa has, if you go back in the past, about AA racing and mutating into Motorsport South Africa. Motorsport South Africa is first and foremost the administrator of motorsport.
Okay.
That's its primary function. However, as part of legacy, it owns certain content. So it owns the National Racing Series, okay, pretty much across the board.
All right.
West Bank Super Series, Pro Tour, Motocross, etc. Okay. Those are currently run by groups of individuals. Some of them have turned them into for-profit companies, off-road racing, for instance, doing a fine job, owned by a group of people.
All right.
Okay, and are running it on behalf of MSA. MSA derives a small amount of income from that. I think in future we're going to be seeing more and more of those kind of constructive commercial relationships. MSA's role is not to promote and market motorsport events. Its role is to administer and to market motorsport as a sport. The promotion of the events and the promotion and the growth of those categories, I think, is better catered for in the future by savvy commercial businessmen. And so I'm looking for a new relationship into the future, where some of those things might even go to tender, for instance, and have a solid business performance relationship between MSA, the owner of the property, and the administrator. Very much, if you think about it, how the FIA has a relationship with Mr. Eccleston around Formula One.
Okay. Now, is there not a slight conflict if you as MSA sit there and say, hold on a second, that property is owned by us, okay, but we're actually not interested in promoting the event? Surely the stakeholder of that entity now sits and says, but hold on a second, whatever is derived from here is actually owned by MSA.
Yeah, they're renting a property. People do that all the time.
Okay.
Take an example in music. You don't create the music, you rent the music and you use it to your commercial benefit. The guy who created the song gets benefit and derives benefit from his royalty. You have a radio station and the consumer enjoys the music. There's nothing wrong with having a differentiation between the owner of the property and the person who manages or exercises that property. I think, in fact, it's probably healthier. You're divorcing the administration of that sport, and sometimes, unfortunately, the legal administration of the sport from the promotion. And I think they're very different skills too. I suspect in the last couple of years MSA has been guilty of blurring those lines. And I think it's been a problem for us. We are not good marketers as a company.
Yes.
We're great administrators. And we're going to get better and we're going to get leaner and we're going to get cheaper. So it's going to get better for the competitor. But there are far better businessmen out there in terms of promotion and ideas and creativity probably than us. Let's recognize that. Let's embrace it and let's try and make it better for the sport and hopefully better for everybody in terms of the money as well.
What about people who sit there and say, I'm sick of MSA, I'm going to create my own series and go racing on my own? Why would they adopt that attitude? What is it? Is there something that's blocking them at MSA?
I think there's a legacy of perceptual arrogance, of being big and bulky and insensitive to criticism. I think there's a sense that sometimes we've blundered and haven't had the decency or the guts to apologize.
All right.
I don't think any of us are unaware of those problems and the perceptual issues, and hopefully things like this, just talking to people honestly, is going to go some small way towards doing it. But ultimately, we've got to do our job well, in fact, excellently, and people have to recognize what our role is and judge us on how well we do the job. So, and if we don't do it, we deserve the criticism.
No, okay, that's good, and I appreciate your frankness and honesty. We could sit and speak for days and days and days, but I do hope that we will continue communication going forward as well,
Sure.
Steve. Sponsorship is a major issue, and you've touched on that quite a bit now. We need competent individuals, people who want to run series and do it properly, and yes, as you say, rent it from MSA, but actually go and turn it into a very viable proposition. We have a big sponsor in circuit racing, and I'm talking just circuit racing because we'll cover all of the others, rally, off-road, etc., in weeks and months to come. But it doesn't seem to be enough. Motoring in South Africa has got a huge legacy, and motor racing has got a massive legacy, a tremendous culture. We have just about every manufacturer in the world selling their cars in South Africa, yet we have a handful of manufacturers who are sitting and saying, okay, let's have a dip. There's got to be a problem that we don't have 50, 60 cars on a racetrack for a race weekend.
I think there is, and I wish I had the easy answer for you.
We need to entice them somehow.
We certainly do, and part of what we're trying to do at the moment, and we're going through individual sponsors, and we'll go into some group fora as well, is just try to understand what they're getting out of motorsport. So how are they leveraging it? How important is it in their total marketing mix? I mean, it's astounding to me, for instance, that a company can spend more money on a bicycle race than they do on their motorsport investment.
Correct.
They don't sell bicycles; they finance cars. There's some disconnect there. Now we can point a finger and say, well, they should be, they could be. Really, we've got to take a look at our own house and ask, is it in order? Is the show compelling? Are we on the right media? Are we getting to the right consumers? Do we have enough eyes, ears viewing us? I mean, ultimately, Formula One doesn't sell motor racing to sponsors. It sells eyes and ears for brand awareness and brand recognition.
Yeah.
So patently, we're not doing a good enough job in that. And that's why I'm saying I want to embrace creative thinking to say, how do we improve the quality of the show? How do we improve the quality of promotion? And if people rightly say that MSA is not good at it and find better people to do it, come and have a chat. Come and give me a viable new business model. We're looking for them.
Well, I was just going to say, surely the model needs to be re-looked at now.
Without doubt.
Because, and you know what, a lot of people said, yeah, well, X, Y, and Z, but a lot of people also got to just sit there and understand that on a Saturday when there's racing, there could be 6 Super 15 games, there could be Formula One qualifying, there could be World Superbike qualifying, there could be a
Sasha,
hockey match.
It happens. I mean, we had a national race, which was fantastic racing down in Westbank Super Series racing in Cape Town.
In Cape Town, yeah.
Same day as the Super 15 and the Stormers were playing.
But also 35 degrees, and people didn't want to come out in the heat.
So,
but we've got it. But
so,
I do understand. I understand the problems,
yeah.
And it seems as though you at least are being very frank about
Look, we
the
understand,
issues.
We understand the issues. I don't think that we're immune to understanding the issues.
Sure.
I'd be lying if I say we have all the solutions.
No, that's fair enough.
What I'm trying to find are people around me and around motorsport that want to find solutions as opposed to want to whinge.
Correct.
Okay? It's hell of easy to take a pot, and I'll be the first to admit there's a lot to take a pot at. Okay, so we can either try and work together and fix it, or we can implode. And I think what happened, unfortunately, and possibly one of the reasons there's been so much turmoil in MSA and turnover, is that we had a virtual implosion this year. We had a breakaway. We had another group in Wamsa that was started pretty much at the behest of competitors. Now, that's a strong vote against MSA. And if MSA didn't take cognizance of it, that would be extraordinary arrogance. So I think we've had a deep, long think about what competitors, our customers effectively have been telling us, where we're making the mistakes. I think we've tried to make some of the solutions come to life already. Some we don't have the answers for. I really don't. So, it's a broad church in motor racing. The one wonderful thing, though, is it's got a huge amount of creative people and a lot of intelligent people, quite a lot of people with money too. So the solution is there, and we will find it.
I'm glad. I really am glad to hear that. I'm going to throw you 3 quick questions just to see if you're going to answer it. Broadcasting rights for South African motorsport. Is MSA involved in that?
To an extent. We actually sell them on to the people who promote the events. Just understand there's been a kind of a seismic change. In the past, people would actually pay for the rights to broadcast motorsport. I mean, in the good old bad old days, there was live TV coverage at Kailami, long before your time, but there was. Okay.
No, I was there.
Okay. Now we have to pay people to fly to our sport. Now, that's partly a shift in the power relationship with us and some of the media, and partly, I think, it's the kind of show we put on, the way we've packaged it. So we're looking at the things we can control, and we're trying to impress on people that there's something worth getting behind and worth buying. But this is not something that's unusual to South Africa, by the way. There's very few motorsport around the world that gets bought.
Yeah, no. Listen, I still firmly believe that you put together the right model and the right show. I think they'll come jumping for you because I mean, let's be honest. If they're going to show the leopards against the pumas or something, is a live game.
I'm on your page. Right?
You know,
I'd far rather watch 10-year-olds on Honda NSFs battling it out within a second of each other
than something else.
Completely mindlessly than watching 2 guys fight over a rugby ball. But, I'm in a minority.
No, I know, so am I. Okay, 2 final questions. Kyalami. What is happening with Kyalami? Do you know? Can you enlighten us as to where it's going? What its future is?
I can't answer the last question. As far as I know, they have gone before court. The judge has ruled that it needs to be auctioned, and he has put a minimum value to the real estate and the improvements. There is a time period for that auction to attract bids. It depends on who wins that bid as to what becomes of Kyalami, whether it remains as a motor racing venue or whether it becomes some form of real estate or somewhere in between. And my understanding is that the bulk of the solutions are somewhere in between, and we're hoping that Kyalami will remain a racetrack for the foreseeable future. We fully expect there'll be some development on that site in order to realize the return, but we believe the two can coexist very, very happily. And so most of what we're hearing is that's the way it's going.
Well, we can only hope so. It would be a travesty to lose a brand like Kyalami. Final one, Steve, and I really appreciate your time. International events. I get every other day. WRC, I read something the other day in MotorSport that we're looking good so far, perhaps to get WRC World Rally Championship, and of course the big one, Formula One.
Yeah, I'm not entirely sure what the seductive value of these international events are, and I can tell you that the perception that these things are open wallet and you make huge amounts of money is untrue. Just as you know, WRC is unsponsored and costing
Yes.
the FIA buckets of money. Okay, I am interested in principle in hosting international events
Okay.
if and only if they leave a lasting legacy for local motorsport.
Yes.
So events that come here need to have some impact directly or indirectly for my competitors. Either they pay huge permit fees to MSA, which means we can reduce licenses down to next to nothing. Yeah, please. Or something. I want to know what they're going to deliver. I'm not interested in having somebody come in here, rape motorsport for a weekend, walk out with dollars and pounds, and not invest a single cent in South Africa. I'd rather not, to be honest with you. It's a personal view. I'm sure other people on my board would have a vociferously different opinion, but really, I'm in a chair for the local competitor. I want to make racing safe, fun, and simple, and as cheap as possible. So if they can help, that's great.
Okay.
If the government wants to get involved as a PR campaign for the country, yes, please. We have got the administrative ability. I promise you we can conduct ourselves as well as anyone else on the international stage. Our officials are that quality. But I'm not going seeking them because we're not a promoter. We don't go looking to make money out of international events.
All right, and the various bids that have been bandied around in the press or whatever, have people come to speak to MSA about these bids?
They have to, because if any international bid has to have the sanction of the host country.
Correct.
We would have to permit it. Okay, so those bids that are official have spoken to MSA, and our roles and responsibilities have each been clearly delineated, as have the fiscal responsibilities. I go back again and say we're not a promoter. If someone wants to run an international motorcycling event, they're at liberty to do so, but the financial risk is theirs. MSA will administer it for them well.
Okay, fair enough. We'll leave it on that, Steve. It's great
Cool.
to have you in the studio. I really, really appreciate your time. And let's try and find some solutions sooner rather than later. And as I said it right at the beginning, I pledge to assist as much as I can. I'm sure we'll have some heated debates in the coming months, which I think is also great and advantageous to the benefit of motorsport. And I do also completely back you on the sense that let's all try and work together to find solutions as opposed to being whingers.
I agree, but please, you've got a huge amount of people listening to you out there. A lot of them are passionate about motorsport.
Sure.
If the issues that they want, questions they want answered, issues they want to raise, please send them to you. Let's have a discussion around them.
We will.
And don't hold back, guys. I mean, the more we get out, the more we can fix. So please, the door's open. Do it.
Well, there we go. The door's open, and it's going to be right here on Gearz. This is going to be the platform for everything in terms of local motorsport. I think we have learnt a lot. I've learnt a lot in terms of, from the promotional point of view of event racing, as opposed to the administrative side of Motorsport South Africa. So, you know what? Now at least we can tackle things as they come about and hopefully get the correct answers. Thanks very much. Steve Miller from Motorsport South Africa, our guest here this afternoon. We will also podcast this a little bit later on this afternoon. And I urge you, please send any questions that you have to sasha@balls.co.za. I will endeavor to try and get Steve on regularly, or otherwise somebody else from Motorsport South Africa, to try and get answers to these questions. And also, if you have a solution, if you have an idea, send it through to us, because you never know. It could be the perfect model that needs to make sure that we keep South African motorsport alive and get it even better, and then hopefully get even our youngsters onto the main international stage.
Gearz on balls.co.za with Sasha Martinengo.
He's kept himself out of trouble.
Weekdays from 12 to 2 p.m. Central African Time.